So NIRG is a stepboard to independence. So coming from a postdoctoral, typically a postdoc position, to your first faculty position. So we will pay half of your salary, typically for around 3 years, to help you to become the faculty of the future.
So NIRG is a unique opportunity MRC provides to young investigators, people who have not been funded previously, to get a significant amount of research funding into their lab. One of the fantastic opportunities here with the NIRG is that it's more of a partnership between the university and the MRC. And a NIRG gives you a chance to show that as a very talented postdoc who a university has shown faith in, that you are now in a position where you can get funding for your research.
For me, it was really the start of my independent career. I could not have started a lab without it. It's like a regular research grant, but it's specifically tailored for me as a young person. And the university really has to commit to you.
A good proposal has value for money. It has a strong case, and doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be disease focused. We encompass an awful lot of underpinning research. It is this balancing act between being ambitious but being achievable, but also likely to result in a step change in our thinking, perhaps.
A good application comes through experience, through building that track record, but also the environment. So, the university, the school, the faculty, and the colleagues you have, the facilities that are provided by the research organisation, the support from the research organisation is really key as well.
You're judging the person. The second thing is place, because they're judging where the young person goes, and that's also in a fellowship as well. And the third is obviously the project, but all three are important. Also for a young person, it's important where you went, right? Is it the right place to do this sort of science? If you're interested in working, as I was, on stem cell biology or early development, then you want to go to a place where all the resources and infrastructure and that you'll have great colleagues, get great feedback for that area. And the panel will be really impressed by this.
The letter of support from your head of department is really important, because if they don't believe in you, why should we? But more practically, what we want to see is that they've really thought about you as an individual and your career aspirations, and how they and us are going to help together to help your career move forward.
Your department really has to sign up to support you. And so they have to be willing to put in the time to write a letter that is specifically about your career and your career trajectory. And they have to agree to put their money where their mouth is.
Lots of the applicants who put in blind applications, in terms of they've not got in touch with us, they don't tend to do as well as the ones that have been in touch with us. And what we can do as programme managers is to help to look at which board will be the best to assess your application. Are you eligible for a NIRG, or would a career development award be perhaps a different route to your independence?
The best grants have 3 questions that basically take forward our knowledge of a particular question or area or disease, that have different approaches, perhaps different technologies associated with them, and that will have an equal chance of being successful. They're not all commonly dependent on a reagent that's developed in one of them. They're not linear in the sense that you can't do the second aim until the first aim's data is collected. They're independent, and the second aim could be pursued even if the first aim, went pear-shaped.
So at the beginning, when you start writing, you frame the questions, you kind of broadly come up with what you want to think about, you maybe write the introduction. But then the actual experiments that you're planning, once you start thinking about it, it changes, and then you start discussing it with other people, with your mentors, with your colleagues, with more senior people in the department, and it changes. And so it just keeps changing, and it keeps maturing, and I think a good grant proposal needs that.
We've made a discovery in the field in 2016, and that was written upon through several commentaries afterwards. And that discovery, I think, was the basis for us going for this MRC grant. I came out with an outline. I managed to show this outline to a few of my senior colleagues here in Southampton. That then led to the excellent proposal that was submitted to the MRC.
One of the most important elements of a good grant is to write simply and coherently for somebody who is a scientist but not in your field, to write a grant that can be understood by the entire panel.
Fundamentally, my assumption is that towards the end of the grant process, there'll be people on the panel who only had time to read your abstract or only had time to skim read your introduction. And they still have to be able to follow why is this cool out of all the other 500 grants that you could fund. So I think clarity and good structure can really help you sell your research.
The preliminary data that I included in my application was data on really new concepts which hadn't been published before and supported my hypothesis and showed that I could undertake the specific techniques that were key to the grant. So originally when I had the idea, I had some preliminary data and I got feedback that it would be more helpful if I had some extra clinical data to support the research hypothesis. So I managed to get access to some clinical samples via links that I have with collaborators at the University of Leeds and the NHS Trust here.
My proposal was essentially 3 aims, and within each aim we had data which supported each hypothesis. Because it's a collaborative, interdisciplinary project, we had collaborative data jointly generated by us and our collaborators, whether it's in London or in Durban and also in Southampton.
Specifically when you're young, it's important to at least have data that shows that what you want to do is technically feasible and that you're able to do that. And that's actually all the data I had. So I didn't have data that showed already the outcome, but I had data to show that every technique I was going to use was in place and was ready to go.
I think it's quite nice to be able to articulate clearly a research plan. It doesn't obviously have to be specific just yet, but we want to see where you see your career going in kind of the trajectory that you see fit. The impact can be either societal impact, which is perhaps just the increasing our knowledge of this area may result in different treatments coming further down the line. Impact can also be economic. Are you likely to then result in a new diagnostic test, for example, that might save the NHS money again further down the line? If your research isn't translatable, that's not a problem, but don't try and crowbar translation in just to try and tick a box. I mean, translation accounts for 1/3 of overall MRC funding, so 2/3 is still basic and underpinning research.
I think it's quite important for us in science to think about how our research can impact the community. I know sometimes it's tempting to say, well, it's just interesting on its own, and that is true. But at the same time, it's nice to somehow step outside and be like, how would I explain to a regular taxpayer why they should, why their tax money should be spent on my work? Mentorship has been really important in me getting the NIRG. My mentor, Steve McMahon, first of all gave me the freedom to explore my own ideas. And then he gave me the financial support to actually generate the pilot data. And then finally, he read through drafts of my application, he provided input. And then also within King's, actually, there's an internal triage, so there are other senior people that read the application. So I would say having a good mentor is key to getting an application that is successful in the end.
So as part of the MRC NIRG programme, I was eligible to apply for the Academy of Medical Sciences Sustain programme. And this has been immensely helpful because it's a programme that supports female researchers in their early career. It provides tailored mentoring from fellows of the Academy of Medical Sciences, but it also provides lots of peer support. So I have my own peer coaching group. So for me, I have generated lots of data from the NIRG, which will help raise my impact through publications. I also had lots of plans to do public engagement, and that's again raised the impact of the research. The data that's been generated has helped me develop other applications for funding bodies. So I have an application in preparation for submission to the MRC, Diabetes UK, but also the British Heart Foundation.
So for me, the NIRG was really the starting point of my career, and as a result of the NIRG, I've now really been able to turbocharge my work, I feel. I have started collaborating very closely with the immunologists here on campus, and we just got a 6.2 million grant to run a welcome PhD training scheme to train the next generation of neuroimmunologists. And that's something I'm really excited about, and something that's also very relevant to pain research.